You often think about gangs, starting in neighborhoods shaped by the streets around them.
Mm-hmm.
But what about one born inside prison walls?
Right.
Today on the Deep Dive, we're looking into the European Kindred, the EK, a prison and street gang, surprisingly, originating right here in Oregon.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we're mainly looking at pretty detailed Wikipedia entry you shared.
Yeah.
Gives a solid overview.
Yeah, like their history, who joins, what they're involved in.
Exactly. And some of the, frankly, disturbing stuff they've been linked to.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to unpack all that for you.
Give everyone a clear picture of this group, where they came from, their impact, why maybe you should know about them.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's get into it. Founded in 1998 in Oregon. But the place, Snake River Correctional Institution,
Yeah.
that really jumps out, doesn't it? Not some slow burn on the outside, but created inside the system.
It really does. I mean, David Patrick Kennedy and another inmate starting this inside prison.
Okay.
It tells you a lot about the dynamics, the environment within those facilities.
So?
Well, a prison, ironically, it's a controlled space,
Yeah.
right? But that can actually help certain ideologies or grievances just solidify into these really rigid groups like the EK. They offer maybe a sense of belonging, power in a place where you have very little.
And it wasn't just any random group forming. The membership criteria are stark. Almost all men. And this incredibly specific racial rule. No more than 1/16 Native American ancestry.
Yeah, that level of racial exclusion right from the start, it's a defining feature.
And it really points to the ideology behind it all.
It absolutely does. That kind of hyper-specific exclusion, awful as it is, probably creates a very tight insular identity. Amplifies that us versus them feeling, especially in a diverse prison population. It's about a very narrow kind of solidarity based purely on race.
And beyond just who gets in, it sounds like they're pretty organized.
Oh, definitely. The source mentions a formal structure, rules, even rituals.
So this isn't just like a casual clique.
Not at all. That structure, the rules, the rituals, it all points to a deliberate effort to build something cohesive, something lasting. It helps enforce discipline, maintain control, both inside and potentially outside prison later on.
Right.
And the secrecy factor adds another layer to that. A tightly controlled group. You see this kind of formal setup in what sociologists sometimes call total institutions, rigid hierarchy, strict norms.
Okay, so you have this organized, racially exclusive, secretive group. What do they actually do? The source paints a pretty grim picture. Violence seems key.
It really does. Their reputation for violence is, well, central. It lets them exert control over other inmates, fill power vacuums within the prison itself.
How does that play out?
Things like extortion, using threats or force to get things from others, assaults, and moving contraband. That's a classic prison gang activity, gives them power and money inside.
And then there's this other detail, dogfighting. That just feels particularly brutal, maybe even surprising for a prison game.
It is disturbing. Engaging in something like dogfighting, that kind of animal cruelty, it often signals just a broader disregard for any rules, any norms, a willingness to engage in really extreme violence.
Could it be like a bonding thing too, or showing toughness?
Possibly both. It could also be about dehumanizing others, which kind of fits with that whole ideology of racial superiority they seem to have.
And when members get outside prison walls, the focus seems to shift.
Right. Towards drug trafficking, specifically meth.
Yeah.
Distributing it, maybe even manufacturing it.
Which suggests they're trying to keep the criminal enterprise going after release.
That's a very common pattern. Prison gangs build networks inside, then leverage them for crime on the outside. The drug trade is, well, lucrative.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, the source notes, there's no documented info about EK members attacking guards.
So the violence is directed elsewhere.
Primarily, it seems, towards other inmates or people outside the system. Maybe that's strategic. Avoid too much heat from authorities inside the prison. Keep some operational freedom.
Possibly. Now, the source gets really intense talking about how you join and how you can't leave. This earning their bones idea and the blood in, blood out policy. That sounds serious.
It is. Very serious. Earning your bones, that's a common initiation thing
Okay.
in many gangs, right?
You have to prove yourself.
Exactly. Commit an act that shows loyalty, shows you're willing to do what the gang does. For the EK, it's described as hostile action aligned with their cause. So, likely violence, intimidation, probably fitting their racial ideology.
It cements you into the group.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Builds cohesion, shared experience,
Mm-hmm.
reinforces their values, even if those values are violent.
And then blood in, blood out. That phrase itself is just
Okay.
chilling. The documentary account sounds terrifying.
It really does.
Yeah.
Blood in for the EK. That means potential members literally have to shed blood, usually attacking rival gang members. That's your entry fee, basically. But blood out. That's the final part. You try to leave. That's seen as the ultimate betrayal.
And the punishment is?
Death. The murder of the person trying to leave fulfills the blood out part for those who stay. It creates this incredibly high barrier. You can't just walk away. It makes membership feel permanent, lifelong.
That is terrifying. Does the source give any hint about how they keep that control besides just the death threat? Any indication about internal dissent?
Not explicitly in the overview we have, but that threat alone, combined with the structure and ideology, likely creates immense pressure to conform. It emphasizes the absolute severity, the inescapable nature of joining. It's not just joining a club. It's like a life sentence, potentially literally.
Yeah, a life sentence.
Yeah.
And the source mentions released members actively recruiting, even targeting high schools. That's deeply concerning.
Absolutely. The idea that they're out actively trying to pull in young people in prisons, jail, even on the street shows they're trying to grow, expand their influence.
And high schools specifically, if that's true.
Yeah, the claim about Portland area high schools points to a really worrying level of outreach, spreading the ideology, the crime, to younger kids.
It raises questions about how they do it, who's vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And highlights the need for awareness, maybe intervention in those communities.
There's also a mention of women associated with the group, marked with FW.
Right. Featherwood, which is apparently prison slang for a white woman.
Okay.
So while it's mainly men in the gang itself, this suggests there's a support network, maybe an auxiliary element. These women probably play various roles, though the source doesn't detail them. Using that slang as a marker just reinforces the group's own internal culture, their identity.
Okay, so moving from structure and recruitment to, well, the real-world impact. The source details two specific, very disturbing murders linked to Inke members. Let's start with Anthony Cleo Wilson in 2002.
Okay. This case involved a guy named Joshua Robert Brown. He apparently joined the EK while doing time for robbery.
And then?
Gets released. Just 3 weeks later, he's indicted for murdering Anthony Cleo Wilson, who was African-American.
3 weeks.
Motives. The source mentions two possibilities. A dispute over bad drugs, but also, significantly, a potential hate crime.
Which fits the ideology.
Exactly. It just highlights how fast someone can go from being a prison gang member to committing extreme violence on the outside. That quick transition is chilling. And yeah, with that deeply ingrained racial ideology, maybe it's not surprising, but still horrifying to see these hate-motivated crimes surface.
And then there's the Larnell Bruce murder in 2016. That one got a lot of attention.
Yes, incredibly disturbing. This involved Ruthel Courtier. He was driven by his girlfriend, Colleen Hunt. They used their Jeep to intentionally run down Larnell Bruce, a 19-year-old African-American kid, after some kind of minor fight.
Run him down. Deliberately.
Yes. The escalation was just shocking. Bruce was trying to run away, trying to escape, and it was caught on security cameras. The EK's impact definitely isn't just inside prison walls. These are the awful real-world consequences.
And the trigger was supposedly Larnell Bruce bumping Courtier, causing him to hit his head. Seems so minor for such a brutal reaction.
Completely disproportionate. And the fact Larnell was trying to get away just makes it even more tragic. It really underscores the extreme violence, clearly fueled by hate.
What happened legally?
Well, Colleen Hunt, the driver, pled guilty to manslaughter. And Courtier, he was convicted of murder and a hate crime in March 2019.
So the hate crime aspect was officially recognized.
Yes, which formally acknowledges the racial motivation behind that horrific act. It's just a really stark example of the EK's capacity for extreme hate-fueled violence out in the community.
Okay, so let's try and bring it all together for everyone listening. Key takeaways from this deep dive into the European Kindred.
Well, number one, prison origins. Started inside Snake River.
All right, number two, strict racial ideology. That 1/16th rule is very telling.
Definitely. Number three, serious violence and crime, both inside prison extortion, assault, contraband, and outside, like meth trafficking.
And number four, that incredibly harsh blood in, blood out policy, no escape.
Exactly. So you see this group born in confinement, but extending its reach and influence way beyond the racial criteria, the violence that's core to who they are. And that blood in, blood out rule is a powerful, terrifying way to keep members locked in.
And those other disturbing points we touched on, recruiting young members potentially in schools, and the documented hate crimes like the Larnell Bruce murder, they show this isn't just some internal prison issue. It spills out with devastating results for communities.
Precisely. The connection to hate crimes really demonstrates the real danger, the tangible consequences of their ideology and actions. It's not just a prison gang, it's a group capable of extreme racially motivated violence in the wider world.
Which kind of leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, considering that EK started in this, supposedly isolated place like a prison and developed this rigid structure, this potent ideology, what does that tell us, maybe, about how extremist ideas can take root and even spread, even from places we might not expect?
That's a heavy thought. How these things fester and grow, even behind walls.
Definitely something to mull over long after this deep dive ends.